talks on the war in Ukraine have been underway in Saudi Arabia. US and Ukrainian officials have wrapped up discussions while separate talks between the US and Russia are set to commence today. Ukraine's defense minister called for the talks with the United States as productive, saying that they are focused on protecting energy sites and critical infrastructure in Ukraine from Russian attacks. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says Russia must be forced to stop the strike. He warned that without strong pressure from the international community, Moscow will continue its attacks. The by Special Envoy Steve Witkoff focused on securing a Black Sea ceasefire. However, Moscow has rejected a broader ceasefire plan proposed by the US and Ukraine, only agreeing to halt aerial strikes on energy facilities. The Kremlin warns that negotiations between the US and Russia will be difficult. Russia says its main goal is discussing a possible export deal, which it withdrew from last year. President Trump wants a rapid end to the war, but with differing positions from both sides, a lasting agreement remains uncertain. Let's take a listen to.
Сьогодні вже друга зустріч української та американської команд в Саудівській Аравії. Більш технічного рівня наші військові, наші дипломати, наші представники Міністерства енергетики. Щойно я говорив з Рустемом Умєровим, він доповів мені про зустріч, про команда працює абсолютно.
Let's turn to Southeast Asia now, where a major political shake-up in South Korea. The constitution is the impeachment of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo. The ruling reinstates him as acting president, a role he took on after President Yoon Suk-yeol was suspended for declaring martial law. The court's decision was made in a 5-1 vote. Two justices opposed the impeachment motion entirely. Impeached Han in December, 2 weeks into his role as acting leader. Another dramatic turn in South Korea's political crisis. With the decision, Han immediately resumes his duties. He reinstates 3 months after his impeachment. An Istanbul court has formally placed Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu under arrest in a corruption investigation. Say they will appeal the decision. The court rejected a separate request to arrest him in a terror probe over graft charges. His supporters have called the case politically motivated. İmamoğlu remained. In a message shared by his lawyers, he said, "I won't be bowed." Fighting his arrest has sparked Turkey's a decade. For 4 days, protesters have filled the streets of Istanbul and Ankara, leading to clashes with police. Meanwhile, 15 million people voted in a symbolized by the opposition CHP as a mass show of support for İmamoğlu, as he was expected to be named the party's candidate for the 2028 presidential race. İmamoğlu was detained just days before the vote, a move seen by observers as an attempt to block his political. Mass demonstrations continuing, tensions remain high across the country. Let's take a listen to what.
Gerçekten de demokrasinin olduğu bir ülkede yaşamak bizim için çok zor. Ama Cumhuriyet Halk Partilerinin bir görevi var. Bu ülkede Cumhuriyeti demokrasiyle taçlandırmak gibi bir görevi var. Biz demokrasi mücadelesini her yerde, her ortamda ve bedeli ne olursa olsun vermek zorundayız. CHP'nin tarihsel bir sorumluluğu var. Bu tarihsel sorumluluğun gereğini yapıyor.
İmamoğlu'nun tutuklanma kararı, gözaltı kararının tam düşünüyorum. Arkadaşlarımızla yapılan zulümde ben de oradaydım. Her şey birinci elden şahit olmak beni çok duygulandırıyor. Henüz 21 yaşındayken böyle şeylerle mücadele etmek zorunda kalmamız.
We once again move to the Middle East, where a US airstrike hit Yemen's capital, Sanaa, late on Sunday, killing at least one person and injuring 13 others. The strike targeted a building in the Essa neighborhood. Eyewitnesses say the victims were passers by, and the building was empty at the time. The blast reduced shattered concrete, twisted metal and strewn across the site. Crews are still while nearby residents try to salvage what they can. Did little detail on its latest. The strikes come after the Houthis threatened to renew attacks over the war in Gaza.
تمام الساعة 10 تماما قام القسم بضرب فوق الصاروخ شارع على أعيان مدنية ولا يوجد فيها مخازن أسلحة ولا يوجد فيها كما ترون تصوروا وتشوفوا.
Over the country says would in an Israeli drone strike in the Kitte car in Ita al-Shah district. Other strikes near a day after the most intense escalation since a November ceasefire. 7 people were killed on Hezbollah. Israel said the strikes were a response to Hezbollah denies any involvement, calling Israel's claims an excuse for more attacks. Iran has condemned Israel's strikes, calling them extensive military aggression, and warned that Israel remains a threat to international peace and security. Israel's cabinet has voted no confidence in Attorney Miara, escalating tensions between the government and its critics. Justice Minister Yariv Levin has called for her resignation, citing deep disagreements that hinder governance. However, her removal could take months. Week's dismissal of Shin Bet chief Ronan Bar, sparking accusations that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government is undermining state institutions. Mass protests erupted in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv Day, uniting demonstrators angry over government actions and handling of Israeli hostages still held in Gaza. Opposition leaders say Netanyahu is eroding democracy. Levin accused Baharav Miara of politicizing her role, while Netanyahu rejecting claims it aimed to obstruct a Shin Bet. The Supreme Court has temporarily halted Bar's dismissal, adding to the growing arrest across Israel. Let's take a look at some of the residents had to say.
To the Israeli government that their actions to ruin the Israeli democracy and leave the hostages in Gaza will not pass. We are here to make it clear Israel is a democracy and will stay a democracy, and the hostages in Gaza will be freed by the Israeli government as soon as...
More news now. US Vice President J.D. Vance's wife, Usha Vance,